Okay, we're live now.
All right, thank you, Mr. Everson. Greetings to committee members and staff. We're going to call this Caddo Parish Long Range Planning meeting to session. Of course, this is a virtual via Zoom. It's March the 1st at 1 p.m. Mr. Everson, roll call, please.
Okay, Commissioner Chavez.
Here.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Present.
Commissioner Jackson. I saw you, but I can't hear you. And Commissioner Young.
Here.
Okay. You have...
Here.
Oh, there you go. Thank you. You have Commissioner Johnson. Okay. Okay, you've got 4 of 5 committee members present. You do have a quorum.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Everson. Commissioners, we'll have our meeting today led by invocation by Commissioner Young, and then followed by a pledge of allegiance by Commissioner Hopkins. Commissioner Young.
Please say with me the Lord's Prayer if you'd like. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.
Amen. All right, if everyone would please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, commissioners. Mr. Everson, we'll move along. I know we got to vote on this.
Yeah, that just brings us to agenda additions, where we're going to need a motion to approve consideration of the items under Louisiana Revised Statutes 42-17.1.
Okay, and I did not receive any agenda additions, did you?
No additional agenda additions.
Perfect, then I'll make a motion that we approve the consideration of items Louisiana RS 42-17-1, if I can get a second.
Second.
All right, Mr. Everson, roll call vote.
Commissioner Chavez.
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Young.
Yes.
And Commissioner Johnson. And Commissioner Jackson, I didn't hear you if you voted. Okay, he may be off the line for a second. It does pass with 3 of 5 voting in favor of it. Well, 3 of 3 present, 2 absent.
Okay. And then we'll move along. Did you have any public comments that you received?
We haven't received any public comments, and also at this time, just for the record, I'd like to mention that this is where the certificate of teleconference is attached. We've not received any public comments, but I could give that phone number out right now. We can give them a minute to call in.
Let's do that. Let's give about 30 seconds for any public that want to call in on this agenda.
That sounds great. So the number that they can call into is 318-226-6596. Again, that number is 318-226-6596. And while they're waiting, if you'd like, I'll go ahead and talk about the format that you mentioned earlier.
Let's do that. I was actually looking that up right now so that we can go over it.
Yeah, great. So I know that the first item is the after action review for the recent freeze event, and we have a number of guests that are on the line. And by the way, the 30 seconds has elapsed for public comments.
We'll close that.
We haven't received any, but we'll let you know if any come in later. So during the 6.1, since there are a number of guests, we kind of listed them in an order to speak, with Tommy Giles with the Shreveport Volunteer Network going first, followed by Rich with Hargrove Roofing, followed by Lauren Ross, and then we'll have the members of the GOSEF with Sheriff Prater and Robert Jump, and then the Caddo Public Works and Facilities are on as well. So I believe that you were hoping that folks could, get their message in about 5 minutes, but we could allow up to about 10 minutes per person.
Perfect.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, yes, sir, Commissioner.
I actually would like to hear from our parish team first. I know we have some volunteers, but I think protocol should dictate that we would hear from either GOSUP or Tim Weaver and the parish staff first, then hear something from the volunteers. If we're supposed to be getting official, is this informal or formal?
It's going to be informal, but in the essence of time, if anybody that's on GOSEP that's on the call or from the Caddo team needs to get on here to give their thoughts before, I would totally be amicable with that. I'll leave the decision of Robert or the Caddo staff.
Yeah, I want to get official information first before we.
Yeah, I think we were trying to make sure that they had time to get on the call, but they are both on the call already.
Okay.
Great.
Yes, sir. I can tell you real quickly. I'm going to leave the specifics up to Robert Jump, who did an outstanding job coordinating the EOC and all the things that were going on there. It's very, very hectic, but I'll tell you what, the parish representatives, each and every one worked so very hard and tirelessly. Not that we asked them to do anything really, or them asking us to do anything. We all just did it together. And so I couldn't be more proud to work with a bunch of folks than those with the parish. And having said that, I'll leave it to Robert to answer any questions about specifics and how many bottles of water we gave away. And of course, we'd all wish we had snow plows and hundreds of tons of salt. But the simple matter is we can prepare and have a few more things the next time, but we're not used to this and can't spend as much money as it would take to be ready for a winter snowstorm and be a fiduciarily responsible way to spend the taxpayers' money in my estimation, but that's a decision for the parish to make. But anyway, bottom line, I'm proud of each and every one of y'all and the way that it was handled.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thanks for coming on. And Mr. Everson, we'll go ahead and allow Mr. Jump and GOSEP to talk. The point of this meeting, I'll give a quick introduction, is just like Mr. Everson said, is an AAR, which in the military, a lot of us are familiar with it. I know the law enforcement are familiar with it. It's AAR is an acronym for After Action Review. The things that we're just going to go down the list on is what was good, what was bad, what can be improved upon. Things like unearthed assumptions, because there was a lot of assumptions I know from local citizens that emailed, that called the commissioners asking things like, and I know Sheriff Prater alluded to that, where's the salt trucks? Where's my water? Where are these different people? Where are the plows? We're also going to go underneath, share insights. We have a lot of different people, both public and private, that are going to be on this call. Thanks for taking the time today, sharing insights on things that a lot of people didn't consider. One of the things that I found interesting was a lot of people didn't even know that you could pour water in the back of your toilet to flush it. Small insights like that, I think, are going to help the community. And if we can look at a 3,000 foot angle of what can we do better and what are the small things that dive down deep into each home to help them out, we'll be better prepared. And of course, like Sheriff said, this is in no means are we going to be able to combat every disaster that comes down the pipe. But if every time something happens that we learn from it and we get better, we can only be better as a city and a parish. This will obviously serve as a dialogue to broaden the overall team awareness between the city and the parish and the different citizens that stepped up and volunteered. We had a lot of people that volunteered, and they're going to be on this call later. And we applaud them and we appreciate them. And we want a better line of communication between the public and the private sector going forward. This will build context for future decisions over things that we may need, like, for instance, vehicles or equipment, manpower that we didn't consider before, but going forward, we'll have the time today to discuss this. And by no means will the end of this call leave us with everything that we need and equipped to better field every disaster, but it will at least give us a starting point on, in the coming months, what we need to expect and what we need to investigate on purchasing or pre-planning for. And last, this will engage all participants in open dialogue to allow the people here today on the call, as well as going forward, an email list, Facebook list, social media list, and our 12 respective commissioners to hear the voices of their people that they represent and get the information that we have yet considered to add that to the list of things that we need to discuss and pre-plan going forward. So thank you guys all for taking your time this rainy Monday afternoon to be on this call. And I look forward to hearing all the thoughts of the people that are on this call. Mr. Everson, with that being said, we'll allow Robert Jump to go forward, and then GOSEP, and then your list of the citizens.
Mr. Chavez?
Yes, sir. Dr. Wilson.
Yes, sir. Respectfully, before we begin, I just want to preference that you and I had a conversation prior to the meeting. I asked my team to prepare a detailed analysis that they were supposed to be giving me on this Friday, on the 5th of March. And we have not completed that analysis yet. So anything we're talking today will be certainly a cursory overview of what we learned, but certainly we thought we'd do a bit of in-depth detail analysis on what we could do better the next time. I did have a conversation with Commissioner Jackson last week, and we talked about doing the same thing. And I asked him if he can just wait, allow us to get through the process. We had our last meeting last Friday at the Emergency Control Center. So we just kind of finishing up the remnants of the storm, and we needed some time to put together something more comprehensive. So I just want you to be aware of that. They have not given me all those reports yet. So, but they're on the line, but we have not finished our work.
Dr. Wilson, I will say one thing: the parish jumped into action, and they did an amazing job.
Yes, sir.
I don't want anybody to take away that the parish was not ready for this. In the military, we always did an after-action review 72 hours after the movement or the event, just so that it was fresh in the mind. Because a lot of the guys, yourself, myself, that were at the top did not get the information of maybe the people at the bottom. We have people like Lauren on the call that were out there feeding, that are going to give us some great insight while they were boots on the ground. Like Tommy, like Rich. So we'll take all the information that they give us, and then we'll come back to the public with a very educated, very research, thorough analysis of what happened and what needs to happen better in the future, what we could do for improvement. So I definitely want you to know that we're gonna work on this, and it's not by any means do I think that our staff was not ready for today's meeting.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Mm-hmm. Mr. Everson, you want to take the floor, and then we'll pass on over to Mr. Jump?
Well, I mean, we can just, if Mr. Jump would like to go ahead, I believe he's the first up. After that, if the Caddo Public Works guys or the facility guys have anything they'd like to add at that point in time, then we can move on to our citizens. And the citizens that are going to speak are going to be Tommy Giles with the Shreveport Volunteer Network is going to go first. And then we'll have Lauren Ross and Derek Simmons. And then Rich with Hargrove Roofing.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Everson.
Hey, Jeff, put me on that list too to talk as well. I think I deserve to be able to say so as well.
For sure. Yeah. Where would you like to be? We just didn't.
It doesn't matter.
Okay. You want to go at the beginning or the end?
I go anywhere. It doesn't matter. Just put me on there somewhere.
Okay. We'll let you want to do the end so you can kind of recap everything everybody said?
That'd be fine.
Great. All right. So that I think that brings us to Mr. Jump.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Afternoon, Robert.
First, I want to echo the same comments that the sheriff made. The past couple of weeks, we couldn't have achieved what we did through my operation in the Emergency Operations Center, and then through the distribution sites and the different challenges that we had within the community. If it wasn't for the cooperation that I get from each and every one of you that are on this call, it does make my job a lot easier when I get positive comments back when I'm trying to solve problems, or when our team here, not me, when our team here in the Operations Center are trying to solve problems for our citizens. And there were some challenging ones over this past couple weeks, of which most of you are probably familiar with. When we lose major water infrastructure, we have plans in place to deal with that, but we lost major water infrastructure pretty much across the parish. And so there were some situations that arose that, while we had some plans for, the amount of them all hitting at the same time was truly challenging. When you look at losing medical infrastructure, dialysis infrastructure to go along with that, and then the amount of people impacted by their homes with the lack of water, it truly was a challenge. And I can't thank everybody enough on this call for helping our community, helping us in the Operations Center mitigate those problems and get through it the best we can. I didn't realize that I was going to be presenting today, so I don't have a lot of prepared remarks, but I am happy to answer any question from anybody, any commissioner, any citizen that's on the call. We did process quite a bit of water for Caddo Parish and our citizens. Collectively inside just the EOC, we had about 600 individual responses that we did to those that were elderly and infirm that couldn't get out of their house and make it to our mass distribution sites. About 2,000 cases we handed out within those 600 calls. But with that as well, we obtained bulk water and ran our distribution sites, which could be 15 different distribution sites at one point or the other during the operation.
You guys kicked butt when it came to distribution of water. I will have to admit, I got a lot of calls that were super impressed with you guys. Did you guys have the water on hand? Was there a warehouse with bottled waters, or did you guys get that shipped in?
So we have our Juella shelter that is a state-run shelter that is there for hurricanes. So there was some water on hand in like 5 pallets. So everything but the first initial 5 pallets of water we had to shop, or the state of Louisiana on our behalf. We shopped from other states. And the water that we obtained came literally probably from every 50 state minus Hawaii and Alaska. At one point, one of the trucks that we had came in from California. So yeah, we did not have that on hand. The state of Louisiana does stockpile stuff out at Camp Minden and Camp Beauregard, and we did access some of that stock, but it was realized fairly quickly that we'd have to start shopping elsewhere to get it, because the impact of this ice storm didn't just affect Louisiana, it had a very significant impact on Texas as well. And so water became a hot commodity very quickly on. But the purchasing department down at COSEP and our state, they did a really good job once we got into the rhythm of it. And so we saw a good supply of water coming into our community.
Is that an area where going forward, maybe we should have a set amount of allocation already staged at maybe a southern Caddo holding facility and maybe a northern? And if so, maybe what do you think, how much we need to have on hand to predict a week of water needs?
I always think it's a good idea to prepare. And as for commissioners of the parish, if you read our unified shelter plan, the state of Louisiana and the federal government really are relying on the local authorities to be self-sustaining for 72 hours.
72 hours?
Yes, sir. Any plan that comes from what we just experienced and any plan that we have going forward, if the parish focuses on the first 72 hours of becoming self-sustained, the better. It makes my job that much easier. And we did, to be honest with you, for the first 72 hours of this disaster, we handled it pretty much locally, manpower wise on all the distribution sites. I say locally when we're talking about handing water out to citizens. when you're looking at that medical infrastructure and our dialysis and supporting those, that was very much contracted tankers, guard tankers and contracted tankers to keep the heat on in our medical institutions, so we didn't have to evacuate any of those. Potable water to maintain cleanliness in a healthcare facility, so we didn't have any impact on our patients. So that stuff was resourced from the state and resourced from the federal government and resourced from contracts that they had out in place for us. But when it comes to handing water out to our citizens and the mass distribution that we did, not just in the city of Shreveport, parish-wide, that was all local resources very early on, with some minimal guard help. And that guard help that we had, those are local residents. You know, those are guys and gals that live in our community, that were just first on scene to help us shuttle water and get it out.
Mr. Jump, I see Commissioner Jackson's hand up. I want to see if he wants to address you really quick. Commissioner Jackson?
Yes, Robert, thank you for the work that you did. I know in all my emails and communications to you, you know, I suggested that you take a break because I know y'all were going 24 hours nonstop, you and all of the team that consists of the EOC. And I know a lot of people don't see the behind the scenes work of EOC. And so they might think that, you know, nobody's planning or we were just caught flat footed. But the reality is, you know, once the weather event is here, it's here. And once the roads freeze up, it's hard to mobilize resources at that point. And so, and what folks also don't understand about weather is it moves, that is, it has a mind of its own, right? And so it could show that, you know, we're going to get 10 inches of snow or a foot of snow 24 hours out. But, you know, the closer it gets time, it could take a shift and that weather pattern can go north, it can go east, you know, so it's hard to predict that. So I don't want anybody to think that y'all were not prepared or the parish nor the city was prepared, because we can't predict weather patterns. I think we've gotten better at doing it. But I think that now also is a time, and I hope that your office will work with us as we start looking at how can we use rainwater runoff. I don't want to steal John Paul Young's thunder on this issue because he's been talking about it for as long as I've known him, and that's been since 2018. How can we use the rain that's falling on rooftops right now to be recycled, stored, and obviously this wouldn't be for consumed water to be consumed by people, but it could be for water that could be used for flushing toilets, helping to make sure that, you know, we have that potable water available on hand so that we're not so pressed. And that's even when we have a tornado or a hurricane that disrupts what we're doing. So I would like to make sure that as we go forward, when we start having those conversations, we may have to, you know, purchase the containers or the tubs or whatever that we would collect them in and store them somewhere. So I'd be interested in getting some Homeland Security feedback on that. I didn't know that there were people already here in Caddo Parish that did that. I'm told that our former assistant administrator, Randy Lucky, already collects rainwater runoff and holds it on under his house or something like that. But I'd be interested in getting Homeland Security feedback at the appropriate time after y'all do your action after review, or will y'all consider that as a part of your review of this process? Is how can we utilize rainwater runoff for non-consumption use? I guess if I had to actually do something for me, Robert.
Well, so we haven't had our official after action report on the response community side. But yes, when asking about would we consider it as an emergency manager and dealing with things that affect our citizens out of the normal, we always consider every option that could help us mitigate any problem, regardless of what that is. So if we're talking about water being the issue, then by all means, we would bring it to the table of the group as we go through the planning process. And as the parish goes through this process as well, our staff here would be happy to be a part of that process and bring some of the planning techniques or the expertise that we have, because you are correct. We were prepared to a point. Community to receive the amount of ice and snow that we did, you're going to be prepared to a point.
Right.
We had a lot of good conversations leading up to it from the Weather Service, and then amongst the officials in our unified command group up until the time. But you are correct. Once you get that precipitation, that wintry mix on the ground, it's very hard to mobilize troops and forces to help the community out until weather allows you to. So we have a challenging time enough in the emergency response realm, because obviously we still have to have full police, fire, EMS presence 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So yes, to answer your question, we'd be happy to be part of the planning process for this committee and the parish, and we consider all the options and all the suggestions that are out there.
Yeah, Robert, I've seen it, and a lot of us seen it where we predicted the sky was going to fall out, and next thing you know, we prepared, and the day passed and we get talked about because folks say, well, they over exaggerated. So trust me, I get it. I appreciate your work. I'm going to recommend to the sheriff that after he promote me to chief deputy, that we promote you lieutenant deputy or something like that. But I appreciate your work, Robert, and thank you for the work that y'all did on last week and the week before.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mr. Jump, before you hop off here, one question that I did receive, water towers. And obviously the water lines were frozen, but were the water towers a situation where we could send a water truck to fill up potable water to bring to the dialysis centers or other locations? Did we utilize any water towers, or are those big things empty? What's going on with those? Do you know?
I don't. You'd have to ask somebody from
Yeah.
I can answer that question.
There you go. But to be
honest, I can answer that question. All the water towers were empty.
Okay.
We had a couple of them that had false levels because of the cold weather. It gave it a false indication. Went empty. Greenwood is still struggling, trying to get their level back up where it needs to be at as we speak now. Pine Hill had a false indication on the level. Shreveport, the one that's in West Shreveport, it had a problem with a valve, and that tank went empty as well.
President, who's in charge of the water towers, or is it each respective city?
It's owned by the municipality or the water system that runs them.
Okay. We'll add that on our list of things to address in the coming months. I appreciate your insight on that.
Commissioner Chavez.
Yes, sir. Dr. Wilson.
Hey, those towers are primarily used to pressurize your system throughout the community distribution network.
Yes, sir.
They're not for water distribution. They're for water pressurization.
That makes sense. To add pressure to lines via gravity.
Yes, sir.
I understand.
It creates head pressure on the system, so that water flows to the end user.
And this is the reason for this meeting, guys. Is a lot of people they call and asking questions, and they sound like reasonable requests. Like, why aren't we using the water towers? Well, now that the public knows that the reason for the water tower is to pressurize the line, so you get a nice pressured shower, that makes sense. So, moving along, Mr. Jump, does that conclude your comments, or do you have anything else to add?
No, that concludes my comments, but I'll hang out just in case something else emerges that I can address.
Thank you, Mr. Jump. You guys were awesome. Mr. Everson will have next on the agenda.
Next on the agenda is the Caddo Public Works.
Yeah, this is Tim Weaver. Just to update y'all, we're working on our after action plan, but I mean, our crews, we have right now we have 4 sand trucks, 4 salt spreaders, motor graders, and we were out, plowing and sanding, and then, it's an unprecedented snowfall, but we worked some all the way around the clock, spent the night at the camps, and then after that we helped out with the water distribution, still doing some of that. And we're going to look at different ways on maybe some more 4-wheel drive vehicles and chains for our motor graders, and probably, look at, maybe we just do sand. We don't do salt, but we're going to look into that. And then we opened our trash compactors up, last Sunday. So we got all those clear. And so I know everybody had a lot of trash to get rid of, and we opened up like half of our sites, and we're back in operation now. And I just have blessed to have a great public works team, and they hit it running. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. I definitely know the parish did a great job. I know outside the city limits, the parish was really rocking and moving around. And it's tough being a city commissioner, because I got a lot of calls like, what are you guys doing? And they don't understand that the parish, the outskirts of what Tim Weaver's crew handles is outside of the city. So I think the only plan that I could say is possibly in the future, after we clear off all the major thoroughfares, that we come in and help the city. And I'm not saying you guys didn't do that, but that was one thing that I got a lot of requests on was, why don't you guys give the city a hand? So whether or not you guys did that, we'll definitely add that to the list of things is after we clean off the major thoroughfares, how can we help the city clear off some thoroughfares?
Yeah, I talked to, the public works director, Gary Norman, every day, but we mainly focused our help to DOTD, on I-20 and 71, where we had, a lot of, big trucks, getting stuck and clogging up, some major interstates. So
that's really important. A lot of people don't realize this. They wanted to go to the store in their car, but they didn't realize that we had almost 300 18-wheelers stuck on I-20 that was bringing the stuff that was going to go on the shelves in those stores, stuck on the freeway trying to come into Shreveport. So thank you guys for doing that, Mr. Weaver.
Yeah, we're going to, like I say, look at, trying to put a couple more items in our tool chest to help us with a snow, ice like this. But we're not just too far off from making it a lot better.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Weaver. Mr. Everson, do you have somebody from GOSEP, or was Tim handling that?
No, I think Robert was the Homeland Security rep, and then but I do think we have somebody from I think Kevin from Facilities is on the line if he had an update. And also, I actually just noticed that Commissioner Hopkins has his hand up.
Commissioner Hopkins?
I will be brief, but I know I was in contact with Works on a daily basis, and I saw them out there. They were out there every day they could be doing clearing roads. I know they took almost a full day over on Highway 71 by request from GOSEP, because we had all the 18s piled up on 71. And Public Works usually always prepare. Yes, we need to put some more tools in our chest, but we had a 100-year storm. I think part of our problem is we have expectations, and our understanding is not always it should be. People look over at Texas and they see Texas doing the rating, but Texas DOTD has a lot more money on farm market roads and interstates. We did, I think, a better job. And so I want to thank our Public Works Department. Buildings and grounds to me, since I've been here so long, around here so long. But I think they did a good job of keeping things up and winterized. And yes, there are things we need to improve on, but I would give all involved at least a B+, if not an A, based on this 100-year storm. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hopkins. Definitely agree with that assessment. Mr. Everson?
Okay, I think Mr. Lawrence, did you have any comments you wanted to make, or?
I'll just be real brief. Good afternoon, everyone. I think the team at facilities and maintenance did an excellent job. We tried to do as much winter prep beforehand as we could. We were fortunate and only had about 3 pipes burst in 2 different locations. One of the biggest challenges we face that we're going to address in our after action review is what Public Works stated. We're going to try to add some 4-wheel drives to our inventory. It took us a bit to get out to address those busted pipes. And then Commissioner John Paul Young, I most definitely want to pick your brain on the rainwater collection. We are doing some intensive studying on water alternatives for our 24-hour, 7-day-a-week locations. So we
Sounds terrific.
other than that, everything went good. I'm very proud of our team, and I appreciate all the help and support from everyone else.
Thanks, Kevin. All the facilities, the courthouse, everything was really up to par. Nothing really happened, which shows that you guys have been prepared and are preparing for inclement weather. And in regards to those 4x4s, I think every other citizen in Shreveport's about to buy one. So we may have to reach out to California to procure some. Hopefully we won't need them for a long time.
We'll
Amen.
take 3. Oh, I'm sorry.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. Mr. Everson, who do you have on the list?
Next, we've got Mr. Giles and the Shreveport Volunteer Network.
I have a question for Kevin.
Yes, sir, Commissioner.
Yeah, Kevin, in your review of your public facilities, I think maybe and I would probably suggest maybe CCC and juvenile detention definitely could use those whenever you capture those in, because it seems like that's where one of our biggest problems were with regard to getting, particularly with like flushing toilets and things of that nature. So that could be a great place to start.
Yes, sir. Those are 2 of the locations we're looking at.
Absolutely. Okay, that's great. Well, it's good to hear that. And like I said, we'll have a discussion in our P&D meeting about, I think we're going to get the guy who does it. And so I'll be sure to make sure you're invited to that meeting so that we can get or I guess he's like an engineer or something that has worked with local governments before with rainwater runoff. So I'll be sure to make sure you looped into that conversation. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I see Commissioner Hopkins with your hand up. Did you have a question for Kevin?
Looks
Todd,
like
you still with us? It's kind of choppy.
Lost his connection real quick.
Yeah, I think he may have fallen off. We'll get him if he gets back on. We'll get Kevin to stay on in case Todd's got a question for him. But Mr. Tommy Giles, thanks for joining us. And I can't even count how many man hours that you guys provided. So welcome on the call today. And let's get your insight on what you guys saw and what your thoughts on the entire situation.
Well, appreciate you guys for having us on, and I got Keith here as well, and he's been able to make some notes, and I was just taking some notes in terms of just kind of what I've been hearing, because you got to understand from our standpoint, I don't know any of these procedures you guys are talking about, and haven't been able to, we're just citizens that are wanted to help. And then we never thought that it would take off in the direction that it did, and things like that. So I would say one of the first things that we noticed was initially when we started clearing streets off and things like that. The first question that we heard the most on any Facebook message that we ever did was, where's the city or the parish? And then I hear on here that, you guys were out getting water and things like that. And I would probably say maybe a recommendation would be maybe visibility is what I think the people were asking for, of saying, hey, maybe social media or news coverage or something to say that, wherever you're doing what you're doing, because that's all we were doing ourselves was doing Facebook Live, or the media were following us around. We're just like, this is where we're at. Here's how you can help. And then it just kind of turned into that. Another one I wrote down was, I had the question come up of the Joella shelter. had only 5 pallets empty in it that was the size of a Sam's Club, and there was space available. We could help with that. I think a big thing that I hear from y'all's standpoint is the resources in terms of getting or buying power of certain things. And so we've made connections with other organizations that are able to fill this stuff up, like no problem. We're in conversation right now to be able to have a direct sending line of supplies between Baton Rouge and New Orleans directly to Shreveport, and have a week's worth of supplies available for our area and for the citizens. And then, it would be something to supplement what the parish and the city in the state are providing. And so that was one of them. I've heard on the call so far that the first 72 hours is the most critical. And I think that's definitely a fair assessment. I think what I've learned on that is that after the first 72 hours has been engaged, and maybe y'all could correct me if I'm wrong, is that's when the state of emergency happens or whatever. And then the National Guard comes in and provides assistance. Is that correct?
Mr. Jump, do you have any insight on that?
Oh, sure. So the state of Louisiana and the federal government, it takes some time to get their assets into the community. And so you are correct. The first 72 hours for us, we have to be able to, we can't rely on outside resources. We should be planning and stockpiling to be able to have something in place for our citizens for the first 72 hours. And then even then, once you access state resources in the Louisiana National Guard, it's still a local emergency. You're still responsible. They tend not to come in and take over. They tend to come in and just be of assistance. And so you still have to problem solve. You still have to have those supply chains and those negotiations, and all of that conversation still takes place. The disaster is still local. But yeah, like I had mentioned earlier, I'm happy to sit with anybody, talk about solutions, especially if it's going to help us prepare for the next time around.
Yeah, and we definitely want to be an asset. We want to help however we can in our side. Someone mentioned that, we're not able to predict weather patterns. And I kind of think that's literally the job of a meteorologist in terms of 100-year storm. If it's being put out there as a 100-year storm, then I'm like, it's got to be important. And so I didn't know who pushes the button on the 72 hours. These are just questions I'm getting. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. But who pushes the button on the.
I cut you off really quick, but we had a commissioner that fell off via his communication, but he's back up. Commissioner Hopkins, did you have something that you wanted to address?
Yeah, I just wanted, but the only thing I wanted to say, I want to make sure and let them know that our PR person, Crystal, did a fine job of putting things on our website. And then commissioners, we were able to take and put on our websites. So I think we were all trying to get the word out, and I know we can only do so much on social media, but I just wanted to make sure because we tend to talk about the people out in the field only. And I know she was working hard to provide information to the public via the news, via social media. So I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that we did have someone that was working to try to provide that information. And I'm actually the one that called it a 100-year storm. I don't know if it was really a 100-year storm. I can tell you this. I was around in 1983 when Caddo Lake froze over. And what we had last week was twice as bad as the 1983 event.
Wow. Thank you, Commissioner Hopkins. Commissioner Jackson, I see your hand up too. Go ahead. I want to get your interjection too.
Yeah, no, let me say, I want to thank all of the volunteer groups that participated, and that's who we are as people. Is we roll up our sleeves when we see a problem. We roll up our sleeves and we go to work. But I want to encourage all of our volunteers, all of our do-gooders. And I even mentioned this to Commissioner Lazarus when I talked to him last week, was we need to encourage them to be part of VOAD. Robert, is VOAD still active and operating? Do we still have a local VOAD?
Mr. Jackson, we do. In fact, I was going to ask Mr. Giles if, with his group, if he would reach out to Lou Drody with the United Way. And I can give you her number. It's 469-4794. And that VOAD group is the first group that we reach out to for those volunteer agencies. So, for example, as the storm was rolling in, we had to think about power loss. Water wasn't on our at that moment in time when the storm coming in, we still had good water infrastructure. But if you start talking about the weather service telling us that we're going to receive a quarter an inch of ice or more, then we have to start thinking about accumulations on power lines going down. So then we're looking at major issues when it comes to heating, because it was, as we all know, we saw record temperatures, low temperatures. And so we reached out to the Salvation Army. They stood up our first warming center for citizens. And we planned that through our voluntary agencies to help with what they provide, whether that's the Salvation Army, the American Red Cross, the United Way. So I would encourage Mr. Giles and his group just to have that conversation with those individuals, because you are correct, Commissioner Jackson. One of the first calls that I make in any disasters is to our volunteer organizations that are active in disasters, that VOAD group. Because I'm reliant on them, like the food bank. I'm reliant on the food bank because they've chosen to tackle that as their mission, to have food available. And so we do lean on them quite a bit. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and I'm going to go a step further and ask Dr. Wilson and our clerk, Mr. Everson, if they would facilitate either or to facilitate an introduction to the VOAD or to Lou over at 211. That's the Lou you're talking about, right, Robert? Lou over at 211.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm going to ask y'all to facilitate a meetup between the volunteer groups. And this can happen in another long range planning meeting, because I don't see Loving Little Ones on here. I don't see a lot of other volunteer groups that were involved on here, because we really need organizations that are not governmental bodies participating in that VOAD coalition, because we don't pretend to be to have the monopoly on how to best respond to a situation. But if we have volunteer groups that are willing to lend and work a part of a coalition of the willing, it's a coalition of the willing, and to meet some of these needs that, while government is working to restore water and we're working with SWEPCO to put folks' power back on, and as Robert alluded to earlier, as we're working to make sure that because believe it or not, people were still having heart attacks and strokes during a winter storm. And so they're still trying. There was a fire, the fire truck still had to go put out a fire, so that's why that VOAD is very important, and folks need to be locked into that VOAD because it's very meaningful. If the next disaster happens or something just happens and people just take it up on their own, start just doing it again, I want to be very clear, that's commendable, but we need it done within the working knowledge, so Robert will know, okay, I got somebody over here that's taking care of water, that's taking care of food, that's taking care of shelter. That type of stuff need to be communicated from the bottom up as well. Everything can't be top down. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. And I definitely know that you had pre-arranged a meeting very similar to this. I like that our heads are aligned, and we definitely need to get all the volunteers on board. Today's was basically just to try to get the 30,000 feet view and then go from there. But I know in the next couple of weeks, we'll be having a huge group meeting with all the volunteer parties to address all the dial down situations. So I'm glad that you're on board. And I know that you're working with that on the other end as well. Mr. Giles, we'll definitely link you up with VOAD via Robert Jump, but to continue on with, I know we're trying to beat the clock, but continue on with a couple of the topics that you wanted to, and we'll move along.
Okay, thank you. I was just looking at some of the volunteers that were, I think, a part of that. VOAD said that they weren't contacted, and I'm just reading the comment as it is on here, and I could be wrong, but
I reach out to Lou, who's the president of that VOAD. She runs that organization. Now, whether those individual groups were contacted by her, that's out of my hands. You know, I present a problem to that group. If they can solve it for me, they solve it for me. If they can't, they say they can't, and I move on to try to solve a situation with other resources at hand. But individual volunteers that are part of VOAD, I had no visibility whether they were contacted or not.
And what we'll do, Mr. Giles, obviously I would hate for this to turn into a finger pointing, but what we'll do is we'll address, what went right, what needs to happen. And obviously there's a lack of communication amongst agencies and volunteers. So one of the things that I have on my list of things to do is figure out a way that we can dial down and communicate to everybody simultaneously, because we have people willing to work, like Commissioner Jackson said. The willing are there. We just have to get the information into their hands. So we'll move along with that.
Cool. So I just have a couple more comments and a couple of questions, and then Keith he wanted to share some stats with y'all just from. I know everybody's been asking us like what all we've done, and so we've compiled like just a very short list of things that we could remember. One of the comments was concerning about being prepared for storms, is that I would recommend being over prepared every time for any storm we have. It would just put us in a position to win every time. And don't underestimate the power of the public in terms of what's a lot of people just had to get out and work, pay their bills and stuff, and had to get groceries and things like that. And so a lot of the buying power that we were able to acquire was from people going, we got to get to work, clear this road so we can go get gas or something like that. And so a lot of our responses came in from the public, like, hey, Miss Smith on this road and address hasn't been heard from in 3 days. Could someone go check and give her some water? And so I think it would be a good idea to have some sort of way to be able to reach out to the elderly and know where they're at, so people can go and check on them and things like that. And we would, as the volunteer network, we would love to be a part of the future conversations of how we can be used for city and parish on city and parish projects and disaster relief and response, because we're willing to do whatever we need to do to help our community and grow and develop, because we fed 5,000 people yesterday and Saturday, and it was just amazing to see the people come, and they sat in line for 2 hours before it even started. And the best part about it is that we had every person that came through the line got something, and we didn't run out of food. We had like 1,500 pounds of food left over, which was amazing. So Keith's going to share some stats with you guys, and I don't think I have any more. I don't think I have any more questions.
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody with Caddo Parish rocks. I'm thankful to be a part of. Man, I'm proud of you, Sheriff Prater and Robert Jump. Our EOC is, out of all the EOCs that I've dealt with through disasters, tornadoes, and hurricanes, you guys are top notch. I appreciate y'all's response and the transparency. I'm thankful and grateful to call myself a citizen of Caddo Parish. And even though we don't live in Shreveport, we love the city. And so in saying so, we were asked, why are you clearing the city streets? Why are you doing the parish's jobs? Why are you doing the state's jobs? And my answer was, tell that to the dying baby in the NIC unit up in Willis Knighton South. Tell that to the fireman that's trying to get to do his job, and he's sliding on ice and he's frustrated and he doesn't know how to get there. You know, tell that to the nurse that spent 72 hours, spent 72 hours at the hospital because she can't get home and her replacement can't get there. We did it because we love our parish. We did it because we love our people. And I'm just thankful for you guys that, and if it wasn't for you guys, we would be even in a worse bind. We all have to come together. You know, our community is frustrated that it takes 72 hours, you know, the 72 hours to get the resources going, but it takes hands and feet. It takes us all to pull together. All kind of different diversities, all kind of different cultures, all kind of different religions, whatever it is, we all have to pull together and to get this done. And in hindsight, 2020, I think as a citizen of this parish and as a Louisiana, I'm proud to be from this state and I'm proud to be from here. So God bless all you guys. I'm thankful. So with all kind of different resources pulled together, Baton Rouge, Houston, supplies came from absolutely everywhere. I can't even tell everybody thank you enough. And volunteers, man, if it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't be who you are today. We passed out 5,808 cases of water. That's 242,000 pounds of water, 139 pallets distributed out of the Summer Grove Baptist Church and Compassion House of Summer Grove Baptist Church. We dispatched tankers of water, 6,500 gallons of potable water. Thank you so much to Colton Sanders at CNC Oilfield Services. Man, my hat's off to you, brother, for shutting down your oil field operations, man, to come and help our hospitals and help our cities. And thank you to our firefighters for fighting the ice to be able to transport water from place to place, to be able to bring water to the hospitals. Man, countless of, we took over 60,000 pounds of other donations distributed throughout our city, whether that would be cleaning supplies, feminine products, whatever. We just 60,000 pounds of that. We cleared ice off of the ER ramps at the street at Willis Knight and South. We cleared Burt Coons industrial. We broke all the ice off of Burt Coons. We got 400 truckers rolling again off of Burt Coons. We cleared the fire stations and EMT paths at I don't know how many locations. We cleared off parking lots at dialysis centers so tankers could bring in water and dialysis could start. We cleared parking lots of nursing homes. We cleared the Sportran bus terminal so our buses can return to transport. Can't count the numerous big trucks that we pulled out to safety. We cleared out the truck stops, ice, so our trucking could begin to, so food could start coming back in, commerce could start rolling back in to our parish, state, and nationally. We fed, I don't know how many stranded motorists. Thank you to everybody who gave to that cooperation. We coordinated with what I believe is, I believe this with 100% of my heart. We coordinated with the greatest emergency operations center that I have seen, and it's right here in Caddo Parish. We coordinated with you guys to deliver water all over to everybody that needed it. And we want to say thanks to all of our representatives. And we want to say thanks to our SPAR, our Shreveport Parks and Recreation Center, for working overtime for everything you guys did. Caddo Homeland, love you guys, and our Shreveport Fire Department. You guys, if anybody would like to talk, I'm not sure who is over the equipment of the Caddo Fire to be prepared for something like this. I have tons of ice driving experience and logistics through moving condensate and oil through North Dakota, South Dakota, Ohio, Pennsylvania. I was a logistics coordinator and for a major oil company. So if any of you guys need any advice on how to what you need. Like I heard somebody earlier say that they wanted to buy some chains for their motor graders. You really don't need to buy any chains, and it just comes with teaching. I'm not. A lot of our people, a lot of our followers are like, man, you guys made our city and our parish look like children, but that's not the case. You guys did an amazing job. My hat's off to you guys for the resources that you guys had. And anybody that wants any information on what you should do or what you could do in the future, I can help you with that. I just have a lot of experience with that. So I encourage you guys to continue to do what you did with what you have. I'm proud of each and every one of you. And man, I just say thanks. My hat's off to everybody, because if it wasn't for each and every one of you, we would be still. And I don't know. I think it went really well.
Keith and Tommy, thanks so much for being here today. I know that you said the reason that you did it all, and you named the firemen and the NICU and the people, the homeless and whatnot. But the coolest thing is I know after talking to you guys and working with you last week, you can't hang out with you two for longer than 15 minutes and not hear the acknowledgement that this love was from Christ, and that the center of what you guys did was because of your Christian faith. So thank you guys for stepping up and showing the world how Christ loved the church and how you guys love your city. So thanks for being on the call today. And this will definitely not be the last call. We'll be doing a lot of work together to figure out how we can all work together to create a better city and parish for everybody. So thank you guys for coming on today.
Amen.
Mr. Everson, who we got on next?
Next on our list, we've got Derek Simmons. I believe Derek is. There he is.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. Mario, Giles, thanks, guys. I think I'm going to try to be as positive as possible on this. We played a very small role in the bigger scheme of everything that happened. I think what's sad is if you look at everything that Shreveport Volunteer Network did, everything we did and the other volunteer groups did, and then if you look at as far as immediate needs for the people, food and water immediately, and what would have happened if we actually waited on the city or parish to fill some of those needs. I wonder when those people would have got their food and water is my biggest question and biggest concern. So Wednesday, that would believe that was the 17th. We had just very grassroots. We are not set up, scheduled for anything like this at all. My wife and I decided that we would just try to serve 500 meals from our store down on Texas Avenue. We're actually just down from the police station, actually 100 yards from the 911 call center. So we decided we'd do 500 meals and just try to help where we could, and hoping other people would do a small point and help out. And with enough people, maybe some people, everyone would get help. We sent an email to Police Chief Ben Raymond, let him know what we were doing. And I was actually asking, because we actually reached out to a few other politicians asking for water or where we could even find water with no response. Police Chief Ben Raymond replied back, "Water is a hot commodity right now. I don't know if we'll be able to help you, but we'll do everything we can," knowing this was going to be scheduled going out for delivery or handouts on February 20th, that Saturday. In the next couple of days, as I assume Mr. Giles can tell you, it didn't take much from reaching out to private individuals, not anyone in the city or parish sector, and we got everything we needed very quickly. And it actually was not that hard to accomplish or come across. So as we got these items, Ben Raymond had a Sergeant Ray, reached out to us and asked how many meals we had and how many he could get for some welfare concerns. In those welfare, I said, you can have whatever we have. This was a day later. I believe it was the 18th on a Thursday. he came across some very disturbing, startling scenes doing some welfare checks on people. One of them, the first one that it came across, was actually in Canaan Towers. Had 110 individuals inside Canaan Towers. There was as of Thursday, there had no one been in the building as administrator or manager since that Sunday. People were roaming around. There was no water in the building, which means there were feces on the floor. There was, you had 110 elderly individuals literally on their own. Some of them had not eaten in 4 days as of that Thursday. He was asking for immediate response and help. And so our 500 meals grew to, by the time we got everything together, Ben Raymond actually got back with us. He actually assigned Sergeant Amy Bowen and Sergeant Ray to help coordinate with us out of our store. So they were coordinating with water deliveries. And what happened after they found Canaan Towers, they realized there was probably some more in the same situation. So by Saturday, when we actually geared up, got our food together, water together, we'd actually located almost 5 different elderly multi-story. Some of them range from the largest delivery we did was 250 to one complex. These people had not, one, they could not get out because some of them require on public transportation and Sportran was shut down. Secondly, these people needed just overall guidance. Some of them were wheelchair bound. They couldn't leave. They had no help. They hadn't seen anyone in their facility to help them. So our 500 meals turned into 2,000 on Sunday that we actually, of course, we figured the roads would be better by Saturday, and they weren't. You'll see Mr. Giles and his team were out actually clearing the roads on Saturday. But we had plenty of volunteers. We actually had to turn volunteers away because we didn't have enough for people to do immediately. But we delivered with the help of the Shreveport Police Department, who was an amazing help to help us locate some of the people most in need. They were going to be the elderly, the disabled, and the shut-ins. I know we delivered multiple meals to a Miss Geneva. I remember that name because she's 105 years old off of Murphy Street. Her front steps collapsed during the storm, and there was no way she could get out to begin with. She only had enough food to get her through Tuesday, so she had actually gone another 3 or 4 days without food or water. So as this progressed, I think the main thing is if we didn't have, the common denominator is I think we lost instruction from the top. I mean, if it wasn't for Ben Raymond and his sergeants and officers coming out to help us find these welfare concerns, and that's kind of where we are when we found out about these places. We tried to reach out and tell other people about it. It kind of fell on deaf ears. So then we actually reached out to State Rep Presley and Councilman John Nicholson and asked them to please come along on a delivery on that Sunday, the 21st, so they could see firsthand and someone with more power than I ever have could see this and uphold these people accountable for what was happening. A lot of this was actually pre-snow apocalypse or whatever we want to call it. Snowmageddon. And so I believe they saw what they needed to saw between these other places. Hopefully the wheels are in motion to help get these people some much needed help. But I think that was our immediate need, was trying just to get food to the people that they would have probably still been waiting on if they were waiting on some state and city help, unfortunately.
Mr. Simmons, that was definitely a lot to unpack. I know I see Commissioner Jackson's hand up. Commissioner Jackson, did you want to address that?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. Let me reiterate and let me say again, because this conversation is taking a turn, and it's not taking a turn for good. Okay, this is supposed to be about after action. What can we do to prevent the situation, not sit here and bag the folks who we task every day, who we trust every day to get a job done. Ben Raymond works for somebody, so you can't sit and say if it weren't for Ben Raymond had to get his permission from somewhere. And I'm not going to sit here and listen to somebody say that if it weren't for Ben Raymond. No, Ben Raymond works for somebody. Shelley Ragle works for somebody. Okay? So stop that. The other thing that I'm going to take issue with is, and I took strong issue when he did it. If you really want Thomas Presley to do something to help those people at Canaan Towers and on Murphy Street, because myself, Lyndon Johnson, and many others come down here week in and week out and bang our fists on the table to get help beyond Snowmageddon. Tell Thomas Presley to take his ass down to Baton Rouge and vote for reform in the assisted living industry. Tell John Nicholson to support a minimum living standard in Shreveport and Caddo Parish. This has to go beyond Snowmageddon, because what I asked somebody was, when they got on Facebook, rah about how they helped the folks over at Canaan Towers, did they skip? Did they not see the people who were sitting on the porch that I pass by every day, who are struggling? This is an everyday situation for some folks. So I don't want to use this meeting to become a let's trash what the government is not doing. We wake up, we go to work every day to try to solve problems. I wish I had the luxury of just showing up to say, look at what I did on this day. But Thomas Presley can help fix the situation at Mount Canaan if he stopped following lobby. John Nicholson can help fix the situation at Canaan Towers if he got on board and supported meaningful enforcement of substandard living. Because that situation that y'all saw that day, we see all the time. I get called all the time, but our hands are tied, particularly at the state level. So again, I want to thank volunteers whose hearts were in the right place. But the good Lord didn't give the folks in the Bible credit when they did the good deed and went out and told everybody, look at what I did. The bent of your heart has to be right. And I want to make sure that we keep the conversation about how do we fix the structural issues with regard to responding to the issues that public bodies have to respond to. Now, y'all are welcome to come be the commissioner for Caddo District 3 and come work on behalf of the people because Canaan Towers is in my district. And I know I work hard for those individuals. But I'm not going to sit here and listen to this. So, Mr. Chairman, let's keep the conversation focused on the snow situation and how we respond with what we have the ability to respond to and the responsibility to respond to. We cannot help it. It's not our fault that the management of Canaan Towers didn't show up for work because they were snowed in. That's nobody at the parish or the city's fault. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. There's obviously, guys, some heated feelings on this because people can't. We're dealing with people, and at the end of the day, these are people's loved ones, and the conversations may get heated. So we'll try to stay on topic. However, we do need to know this information. We're not going to sit here and try to point fingers at who fell short, who didn't do it. We thank the people that did step up because
But Mr. Chairman, yes. With all due respect, again, I wake up every day. Okay, I wake up every day to go to work for the citizens, not those people or these people. I wake up every day and go to work. Dr. Wilson gets tired of me ringing his phone, trying to get help for my district. Tabitha Taylor works her tail off trying to get help. This is not a once. We don't deal with this once every couple of years. We deal with this every day.
You're definitely right. I'm CC'd on a lot of emails to Dr. Wilson, and I'm sure of all the commissioners, Dr. Wilson would agree with me. The person that reaches out to him the most is definitely Commissioner Jackson. But on this checklist of things that we're trying to get out, the Alice checks are definitely going to be on the list of things that we need to take away from this. Is the asset limited restraint personnel that live in our different respective districts. We're going to have to start doing some weekly or quarterly checks or figure out what's going on. I know you're a huge advocate for this, and we have a health millage tax that we take on. And I don't know how we're going to formulate this, but it sounds like we're going to have to use some of that revenue to hire somebody to start checking on these apartments or these housing complexes or wherever we felt short. Obviously, and we did. We can all say that at the end of the day, there was people that live in our city and our parish that were not taken care of. And I'm not here to point any fingers. I'm just here to say it's time for us to figure out how do we address that did not get addressed. And like I said, I know there's some heated feelings on this, but let's take this as a learning experience and move forward. Mr. Simmons, I still have you on the floor. Did you and one thing I did want to add is, Derek, you guys are not a restaurant. You're not a local eatery. As far as I know, you guys are more of an art complex. So the fact that you guys stepped up to feed people or how you had the means or the capabilities is pretty awesome. So thanks for doing that. Did you want to get Lauren to speak on this or did you have more to add?
I just have one more thing. Lauren had to leave and go take care of our son. She had to leave and take care of that. My fingers aren't pointing at anyone indirectly, but letting you know who, first of all, who we dealt with, who was able to help us take care of this. I'm not in the volunteer business. I'm not in the, we're just business owners and we're just helping our community, first of all. Second of all, these are just the people that need it. And it wasn't just Canaan Towers. There was multiple places all over. There was actually 5 places throughout the city. And those things were actually brought to us via Sergeant Ray, who was doing these welfare checks. Luckily, on some of the places, as we went multiple days, and I will give, now the politics involved, y'all deal with that after I'm off. I don't care. I will tell you that State Rep Presley actually did put his money where his mouth was and continued to feed the people at 2 of these places. It was over 300 meals a day he worked with out of pocket. He didn't have the way to organize it. So for the rest of the week afterwards, going into the week after this, they actually came here. We boxed up an additional 300 meals a day and took water to 2 of these places because some of them didn't have management show up for, for the next, I think one of them showed up on Sunday, which was no one was there for a week, and another one was week. I don't know who's, I think thank God for Sergeant Ray able to find these people. That's what I'm saying. Otherwise, you probably would have had some bodies to deal with after this and some bigger issues. Yeah, it goes back on management, but it only has to do with just, I think what's interesting is you'll see volunteer groups like Mr. Giles, myself, and some others who just saw a need and it wasn't being met. And so we just took care of it. And that's it. There's no political movement one way or the other. We saw a need and it was taken care of. And that was end of that.
Mr. Simmons, I see Commissioner Hopkins. I think he wanted to address you. Commissioner Hopkins?
Well, I just want to, as a whole, because I've been kicked off so much of my feed here. But I do want to say that, yes, this is a learning experience for us. But I want to say that I did see a few groups and individuals volunteer their time and their money to help. Because let's be real honest, government can't do everything. If our guys are out trying to clean and get roads open and trying to keep facilities open, and things like that, we need the community. We've got to have the community helping us. And I think there was a influx of people I personally know that spent their personal money and their time to help whoever they could. And I want to thank each and every one of them. Churches were there as much as they could be. So I think there's a learning experience. We have found out that there are many groups in this community, Caddo Parish, that are willing to help, and we need their help because we just can't. Government, the Caddo Parish Commission can't do everything on it. So I want to thank y'all that took the time to do the volunteering, to help secure. And yes, maybe y'all, some of these groups need to be hooked in. Somehow we need to figure out how to hook them in with GoSep. I don't know how we do that, but that's something we can talk in the future. All different volunteer groups and making sure they get their information same time as we're getting their information. And I think we can better help this whole community. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hopkins. Derek, did you still have anything to add? I think we still had one more person on the line.
That was it. I just want to thank everybody for the time. I'm sorry Mr. Jackson saw that as an attack, although it wasn't. It was basically just saying, here's some things we dealt with that when you put on the agenda of things we need to address, those are things we need to address, is these other welfare concerns and having food and things on hand to take care of that need it the most. And that's what we did. I don't really understand his part about people posing in the photo ops. I'll take that as he wasn't directed at me. And then secondly, I mean, we have our business here. We live here. Nobody loves Shreveport and trying to do as much as Shreveport, I believe, as we do in our own little part of the world. So I hope I didn't perceive those as some attacks from Mr. Jackson, but I do appreciate it. But here we are just doing our own deal. And guess what? We're going back to work too, doing what we do. And we're involved in our community dramatically. Mr. Jackson, I'd love to invite you we're having a big event, April 23rd, 24th, 25th. On the 25th will actually be work on the Sunrise Social, will actually be a unity concert to where many of us will come together and have like a gospel brunch together. So maybe Mr. Giles and a few others would like to be involved in that. That'll be fun. Try to help bring the community together and not divide each other. So I think that'd be fun.
Sure. Thank you, Derek. I'll definitely get
Thank you.
Commission to send out to everybody. I thought I heard Commissioner want to say something, but no, and I'm with you. We had a lot of people stepped up. It's one thing to say, Commissioner Chavez, Commissioner Jackson, Councilman Fleury, State Rep, Larry Bagley. Those were all people that got out and helped people. And those names are recognizable. However, people like Omari Hosung, she reached out to me, Candace Batiste. Those are names that people don't necessarily hear of on a public sector, but they were out there feeding people. They reached out to me countless times, and it was so cool to see the amount of volunteers and the amount of citizens in Shreveport step up and say, we're part of this city, we love our city, and we're going to make stuff happen. So I agree with Commissioner Hopkins. The public entities can't do it all. And at the end of the day, Derek, Tommy, Keith, Lauren, thank you guys for getting out and helping assist the public entities that can't do it all. Because at the end of the day, we're all here together. We're all in this together. The old saying, we're all in the same boat, with some on our yacht, some on our canoe. At the end of the day, we're all in this city together. And the fact that we went around and helped our neighbors, and we're sitting here today identifying what went right, what went wrong, and how do we learn from this and become better, a better city, better unity. That's the point of today's meeting. So I don't want anybody to get taken away from this with anger or hostility, but we'll meet in the middle. And sometimes when you love people that you love, you get angry at them, but we can walk away from here saying, okay, we got the core points on what we need to work on, and let's get to work on that. So Derek, thank you for you and Lauren doing all the things that you guys did downtown. Mr. Everson, I know we still have Rich on the call.
We do.
I'm here. Yeah.
Rich, thanks for patiently waiting. I know from the roofing industry and the snow and the weight of everything happening with the carports. It was something we never anticipated. So thanks for being on here. And from your standpoint, what went right, what went wrong? What do we need to anticipate for?
So I'll jump out and I'll go ahead. I want to thank all the volunteers and all the public servants that did everything to get us through this thing. It was incredible. Unprecedented, as we all know. I wanted to address property damage and what some of us sustained and what a lot of our clients, now we're not volunteers, we're a for-profit business. But the less calls we get, the better for us. We want to do our jobs as best as we can. We want to provide the best product we can. Right now, what we experience more than anything else is creating, we had ice and water dams created, ice dams created on most roofs that we dealt with, and almost all calls that we went out on. It was ice dams creating leaks within these people's houses, in which nobody could really take care of until we could access the roads and get ourselves on their roofs. Now, that being said, there's some code adherence that, I'd like to mention and hopefully we can take a look at going forward with the parish and the city that could eliminate this problem, or at least help us tremendously with this and our citizens. So that's all I really wanted to address. The carport situation.
Rich,
yes.
I don't want to correct, but you actually have the MPC director on the call with us, and Alan, thanks for being on here. They're the ones that write the code, so I think that was very important that we address maybe the lack or the fail of the current carport codes, and your ideas on what you mentioned that you think we should upgrade to, or ask builders to pre-plan for, because in the future, how are we going to combat this situation?
Well, and that's what I'm happy to hear the MPC directors here. Thank you for listening to me. And I actually wanted to address something Mr. Stephen Jackson said earlier. As far as a meteorologist would be concerned, can they, and I don't know, I'm no meteorologist, but can they possibly see if this is going to be an occurrence moving forward more commonly? I mean, are we going to see colder temperatures year over year? What should we, because the MPC has not failed, in my opinion, in regards to this code. We've never experienced anything like this. And it's not a common code adherence here in our state. Nowhere in the state does it. And you had to go as far as Dallas to first see it. But I mean, I think it's important. It was 95% of the calls we got were addressing these concerns and addressing these leaks that this was the issue on. So that's really all I'm here to mention,
Rich, thanks for coming on. And Mr. Clark, are you on here with us right now? I know you're going to be on here later.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay. I don't know what we'll have to do, but I'm adding this on our code. Obviously, we're not going to address this now, but this is definitely one of the things on the topic is I wanted to take away from here is what was the core things that we really learned from this 100-year storm, or this Snowmageddon, as different people have called it. And one of the things that we had to address was this. So we'll meet up later after this and see how we can get the UDC and the MPC in line with different building code on what we need to do to be more proactive. I didn't know if you wanted to talk on this or give a comment. If not, we'll move along, because I know we're going to hear a lot here in a minute about the UDC and other things.
I would just like to share with Rich that please reach out to me at your convenience. My number is 673-6474, and share with me your concerns and everything up. This may not be the appropriate venue, but I'm very interested in hearing exactly what you're talking about and what we can do to be of assistance to citizens in the planning limits.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Clark. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So, Mr. Everson, I think that concludes all our visitors for today, correct?
It does.
Okay. Everybody that's on the call, look, thank you guys for coming. We have a lot of work to do, but this is the start of it. It's the start of what I like to call white book.
Hold on. Don't dismiss them before I talk.
Yeah, we have at the end is President Johnson is the
perfect.
last.
Okay.
But those were the visitors. So
got it. President Johnson, I definitely don't want
to
leave you out. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, it seemed like you were about to dismiss him, and I want him to hear.
I was. Thank you for speaking up.
Okay. All right. a couple of things I want to talk about. Well, first, I want to thank all the volunteers that did perform work during the winter storm that we had. The Public Works Department for both the city and the parish did an excellent job of doing what they had with the resources that they had. The Shreveport Fire Department, they did a wonderful job with transporting water along with the Louisiana National Guard. The Shreveport Police did a job, and both the fire department and the police department also did door-to-door water deliveries and helping out. The sheriff department did a lot of water deliveries as well. One thing that I would have to say is, where do we draw the line when we have a natural disaster? There are some things that the EOC saw that was most important, and that most important thing that we saw was water, because the infrastructure in Shreveport had failed, the infrastructure in Greenwood had failed. Blanchard water system was down to a little nothing, and Pine Hill system was down altogether because it feeds off Blanchard and Shreveport. So water was the most important natural resource that we felt that the citizens of Caddo Parish needed. Sure, people need to eat as well, but then there's always a lot of different plans out there that feed citizens on a day-to-day basis, and not just once in a week or once in a year. Those situations should have been called in to the EOC, because then the EOC could have addressed them on the long haul, especially the Canaan Towers issue. If that employee didn't get to work and couldn't get to work, then that should have been a call to the police department. And when the police saw that, that should have been coming in to the EOC so that we could address that. There were many organizations out there feeding folks all over Caddo Parish, and I can't single one out over the other when they all did the same cause, and that was feeding people that needed to be fed. On the capturing of the rainwater, there are a lot of citizens in Caddo Parish that are actually doing it. One lady in my neighborhood, she actually has been doing it, and I thought it was an amazing deal. But there are citizens that do that. One person was doing it on West Martin Luther King Drive, and actually using that water to not only for non-potable, but for potable sources as well. So there are people that do that, and they have no means of fresh water. It was just basically they were using rainwater for water in their home for everyday use. The carport load, I think there already is a standard out there on basically on loads for carports. But at the same time, I don't think if this event happens multiple times, I see you to change it. But right now, if somebody has a carport that's up, you're not going to take it down to put up a new one just to meet the new code. It would have to be grandfathered in. One thing that I do have as concern is when private citizens go on the road and do the work of public works. I know that you felt there was need to be done, but there are a lot of liabilities that go along with that. If by chance you had an accident or by chance you hit somebody that was out on the road, they would have been saying, who gave you the authorization to be on the road to do that? Before the first snowfall fell, I had a talk with Dr. Wilson and told Dr. Wilson, we're not prepared for this, as far as the parish was concerned, in the city, because there was no salt trucks readily available to put salt on the roads. The conversation basically was they was going to put sand on some of the bridges and just wait until they can get back on the roads to try to help the roads out. In our conversation, we talked about putting snowplow blades on the sand trucks, just like they did when we was up in Washington, D.C., and we ended up getting stuck there for 2 extra days. They made announcements, told citizens, don't be on the road for the next day or so. If they were on the road and the snowplow came through and it hit your vehicle, oh well, you was given a fair warning not to be on the road. And things of that sort is what we have to do. And actually, we've already researched some of the costs of some snow plows that could go on those sand trucks. Another thing we found out too is you don't really have to always use sand. You can use a brine solution. And we talked about repurposing some trucks that they have to spray down this brine solution ahead of the snow and ahead of the ice to help melt it in the case of we have another event like this. So there are things that are in the works. It's not like we plan on getting caught a second time like this, but when we have 3 storms that come through back to back to back, one was basically snow, the second was snow, and then the third came with sleet and freezing rain. It's not a lot that you can do with the equipment that we had. As far as water, I've seen so many bottled waters, cases of bottled water that I don't really want to see too many more no time soon. You talk about all the distribution points that were given out initially throughout the city and throughout the parish. We gave out a lot of water for citizens. Yeah, there were some citizens that couldn't come and get water, but if we all do my brother's keepers, then as you come and get water, you can get water for your neighbor. And if that neighbor gets water for another neighbor, we'll have everybody covered. There are still people right now that still don't have water, only to the fact that they had busted water lines. And so until a plumber can actually get to the house and get water restored, this water is still out. And these events don't just happen to one particular race. It happens to all the races. It happens to all income levels. So nobody is excused from this. It covers everybody. So I think we got to look at more of working together for a common cause and not point fingers at people or not say them people, these people. It's everybody. I mean, we could have went into any neighborhood and you had the same kind of situation. The Canaan Towers is just one incident, but if you go through Caddo Parish, I can find that same situation everywhere. There's apartments in Blanchard, apartments in Oil City, all throughout the parish that you will have the same kind of situation. So let's not just pinpoint Canaan Towers. There's other housing developments that have the same kind of situation. So with that, I'm done, and thank you for your time. But, there was something that we'll learn about every time that we have one of these events. It's a learning process because the Caddo ELC is not that old. And we go as we learn as we go, and we try to do the best as we can for the best of all people in Caddo Parish. Thank you.
Thank you, President Johnson. We'll wrap that up, and obviously the takeaway, we have a lot, but kudos to the EOC and everybody that volunteered and helped out. It's nice to know that the parish was on top of it, and Robert and your team were there to help out. Mr. Everson, we'll move on to the next agenda topic.
Okay, well, just as a reminder, we have about 20 minutes until our work session starts. And we do have 2 agenda items on here. We have the planning and zoning discussion relative to House Bill 697 is our next item.
Okay. I know Commissioner Hopkins, you've been working out a lot on this, and this is obviously the bulk is going to be in yours and Commissioner Johnson's and Epperson's district. Did you want to talk about what you have tried to push forward with the MPC or the new UDC plan?
Commissioner Hopkins, we're having some trouble hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
It's pretty choppy. Yeah. You got a Wi-Fi connection, Commissioner Hopkins?
All kinds of trouble.
Do you want Mr. Everson, if you want, I can call another long range meeting and we can maybe get Commissioner Hopkins down here closer in the essence of time and for the connectivity. We can address this agenda item in a couple days.
Yeah, Commissioner Chavez.
Let's do that.
Commissioner Chavez.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Dr. Wilson.
Sir, let me suggest, I just email you all a copy of my recommendations.
Okay.
What do we need to do moving forward to be in compliance with House Bill 697, which changes the way how we do business. So I forward you this today, and it outlined 3 options. And I think it'd be better served if you can call another long-range planning committee meeting to go through these options that I'm suggesting to you all. And then we can work through a process to select a viable way forward.
I think that's a great idea, Dr. Wilson. Let me do that. I'll discuss it with the team, and then I'll call to the meeting, and we'll reevaluate this and re-meet again, and we'll get a better connection for Commissioner Hopkins as well.
Yes, sir. All the commissioners will send a copy of that letter today.
Perfect. Okay, Mr. Everson, what we'll do is we'll bypass this agenda item, and we'll move on to the next, and we'll reevaluate this and meet back in a couple of days. I'll call that meeting.
And Commissioner Chavez, I think Alan Clark, I saw wanted to say something real quick.
Okay, Commissioner, I'm sorry. I see Commissioner Clark, Commissioner Hopkins' hand up really quick. Todd, did you want to say something? No, he's still off. Mr. Clark, go ahead.
Nothing much, sir. I was just requesting if we could possibly have a copy of the recommendations of the administrations. So at which time we should happen to meet.
I'll give you a copy, Mr. Clark.
Sir?
I'll send you a copy.
Yeah, that's all I'm asking, so that we can be able to better discuss with the commission and the administration those recommendations and our recommendations.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Mr. Clark, thanks for coming on the call today, being here for the other meeting, the other topic as well as this. We'll circle back and meet in a couple of days on this after Dr. Wilson sends you that information.
Thank you so much, and enjoyed being here. And like you all have done, I'd like to just share kudos to everybody that was involved with a terrible situation and all of the things that people did, not because they had to, but simply just because they cared.
I agree 100%. Thank you, Mr. Clark. Mr. Everson?
The next item is discussion relative to the 2020 hurricane damage to the Veterans Affairs and Drug Court building. Dr.
Wilson, did you want to discuss this?
Yes, sir. Just briefly, Commissioner Chavez, you know, the old Veterans Center that we had on Crestwell Street was completely damaged by the storms. We ended up tearing it down to the flat slab. And the insurance company paid us damages for the estimated replacement costs, minus the deduction, which was pretty significant. So to make a long story short, we looked at other buildings that perhaps will serve our interest downtown, and we couldn't come up with a building that we would want to purchase it and put this operation in, because we have the Veterans Assistance Center and our Drug Rehabilitation Center in the same building. So we did talk to TBA about getting another estimate to rebuild the building, and that came out to 1.5 million. And so we just didn't want to put it on the agenda to transfer. So money will have to be transferred from the Reserve Trust Fund to make up for the difference in the insurance company will not pay to rebuild the building. The actual replacement cost is 1.5 million. And we're only getting about, is it 800,000 replacement value. So the difference we'll have to pay out of our pocket. And so we just want to inform the board that we want to build back in the same location and perhaps something better than what we had originally. But we had to do a transfer of funds. So we want to let you be aware of that as well, that it's going to cost more than just $500,000.
So, Dr. Wilson, are you guys going to come to us with a $700,000 request?
I think it's going to be a little bit more than that. Yes, sir. Well, I think it's $1 million, Kevin.
Yes, sir. We had the amount of money from the insurance company minus our deductible. Miss Haley can speak to the exact amount of the money that we're going to be asking. She's a whole lot smarter at that than I am.
I got Commissioner President Johnson with his hand up.
Okay,
President
can we answer your question before we proceed, sir?
No, I'm not worried about to the penny. You say 1 million.
Okay.
I'm gonna look at the detail after you guys send that to us, and I'll go from there.
Okay.
I know Commissioner Johnson's pretty good on the numbers as well.
Okay.
Yeah, Dr. Wilson, I just was gonna ask, did y'all explore outside of the downtown area?
No, sir. We looked at downtown facilities. That were several that was brought to our attention, but we were looking for a parking place and to accommodate the people that use it, and then also along the bus lines as well.
Well, the reason I asked, you got other commercial pieces of property throughout the city that they're sitting there vacant. One that I can think of off my hand is all these Rite Aids that's been shut down. If we take some of the Rite Aids and repurpose it to a commercial building of use like that, I think, that would be something that you could think about. And then maybe even move a department that's crowded in one area into that same building, because you'll have way more square footage.
Yes, sir. I got you. No, we didn't consider too many facilities outside the downtown area, to be honest with you. But we did look at trying to put multiple functions in one building, because we were looking at trying to also accommodate the DA and his requests for space in the past. And we looked at multiple users in a location. So we can take a look at what you suggest, but we also need to keep in mind that we have to renovate it to a certain point as well.
Right, I understand, but if you could kill two birds with one stone, I think that would kind of help compensate for that additional cost.
Yes, sir. We'll take a look at it. I'm aware of a couple that's vacant. We'll take a look at it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. That's all I had.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, President Johnson. And Dr. Wilson, when you guys do get the to the penny number, more so than the amount, can you send us over, I guess, the research on the rebuild, and then what you guys have identified as far as that being the best spent on the parish dollars?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can do that.
I hadn't seen any reports on that yet, so I'd just like to look at that before ultimately we vote on that. I show no other commissioners on the board. When do you anticipate on us getting those reports and having to purchase this or do this remodel, Dr. Wilson?
Are you going to have your next meeting scheduled in a couple of weeks?
Okay.
Well, we'll try to ascertain. There's one commercial developer that we talk to on different facilities. We'll talk to them and see if there's anything available that would meet our needs outside of the downtown area. We'll take a look at it and see what it will cost to renovate it, or perhaps keep on the drawing board building a new facility.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thanks for bringing this to our attention.
Yes, sir.
That's it on the agenda that I have, Mr. Everson, unless you have anything else.
That is it.
Yeah.
Okay. I know we'll see everybody. Yes,
One,
sir, Dr. Wilson.
One other comment.
Yes, sir.
I know a lot was said today, but in terms of the efforts in the past winter storm we just went through, everybody did a yeoman's job through every agency. I also want to thank the unsung heroes that volunteered to get our people to work over at the juvenile center. We had the lizards, the Jeep folks. They volunteered to go and pick our employees up because we couldn't get there with the normal vehicles, and also those people that transport the nurses and doctors to hospitals during the height of the storm when we couldn't transgress the roads and stuff. So all those people, everybody who did a job and put their hand to the plow was very grateful, and I appreciate it as well, because we couldn't get our employees to the job without some assistance as well. We don't have too many four-wheel drives in our fleet, so we'll be adding those in the future, of course.
Dr. Wilson, that road goes both ways. I applaud you because I know I contacted you many times at 10 p.m. at night and later, and you were still responding. So I know it's easy to look at the social media and see who's out there in the streets, but a lot of people don't know that there's actually people behind the scenes too doing work. So it's going to take everybody. So thank you for bringing that up.
You're welcome, sir. Thanks.
I show no other commissioners on the board. If I get a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All right, second. I'll see you guys in about 30 minutes.